There are wars you fight, and there are wars that trap you. And then there's Vietnam. A war America thought would take months, maybe a year, a quick show of force, a simple cleanup job, a Cold War message to the world. But as historian Stanley Carnot describes in Vietnam, a history, Vietnam quickly became a nightmare that lasted more than a decade. A jungle war fought in mud, rain, and shadows. A war where the world's most powerful military struggled against farmers, guerrillas, and ghosts. Where television brought the killing into American living rooms every night. Where politics and pride mattered more than understanding the land or its people. This wasn't just a war America lost. It was a war that changed America forever. This is the story of how the U.S. walked into Vietnam thinking it was saving a country and walked out realizing it couldn't even save itself.
This is a different kind of war.
To understand Vietnam, you have to go back, way back. Vietnam was controlled by France for almost a century, but after World War II, French rule began to crumble. Vietnamese nationalists, led by Ho Chi Minh, wanted independence, dignity, and unity. According to historian Frederick Logeval in Embers of War, Ho Chi Minh wasn't a Soviet puppet at first. He even admired American ideals and quoted the U.S. Declaration of Independence. All men are created equal, but the Cold War twisted everything. To Washington, communism had become the ultimate threat, a virus spreading across Asia. China had gone communist. Korea was divided, and U.S. leaders believed Southeast Asia might fall next. This became the domino theory, described extensively in the Pentagon Papers. So when Vietnam split into North, communist, and South, anti-communist, the U.S. stepped in to support the South. At first, Washington sent advisors, a few thousand men training South Vietnamese troops. Nobody in America imagined this would turn into a full-blown, decade-long war. Nobody realized they were stepping into a swamp with no way out.
The determination of all Americans to carry out our full commitment to the people and to the government of South Vietnam will be redoubled by this outrage.
Throughout the early 1960s, American advisors watched something alarming happen. The Viet Cong, guerrilla fighters loyal to the North, were getting stronger. They knew the land of the weather, the villages, the rivers. They could melt into the jungle, disappear in seconds, appear behind a U.S. patrol without warning. By 1963, South Vietnam was unstable. Corruption, political chaos, and lack of public support created a government barely holding itself together. As documented in the declassified Pentagon Papers, the U.S. backed a coup that removed South Vietnam's president Ngo Dinh Diem, a move that would haunt the entire war. Then came 1964, the Gulf of Tonkin incident. Shots fired between U.S. ships and North Vietnamese patrol boats. The truth is still debated, but the response wasn't. Congress gave President Lyndon Johnson a blank check to escalate the war, the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. And just like that, the United States went from advisors to boots on the ground to a full military intervention.
It is a solemn responsibility to have to order even limited military action by forces whose overall strength is as vast and as awesome as those of the United States of America. But it is my considered conviction, shared throughout your government, that firmness in the right is indispensable today for peace.
By 1966, more than 400,000 American troops were in Vietnam. Helicopters dropped soldiers into zones where the enemy could be anywhere, behind a tree, inside a tunnel, hidden in a village. The U.S. had the world's most advanced military: air power, artillery, napalm, Agent Orange, armored vehicles. But, as writers like Tim O'Brien and Bernard Fall have shown, The Viet Cong fought a different kind of war entirely. Hit-and-run ambushes, booby traps, tunnels stretching for miles, night raids, sudden attacks on bases that seemed safe. The U.S. measured progress with body counts, as if victory could be calculated like a scoreboard. Meanwhile, the North Vietnamese Army used the Ho Chi Minh Trail, a supply route running through Laos and Cambodia, where U.S. forces weren't allowed to attack directly. America was fighting shadows, fighting a people who believed deeply in independence, fighting an enemy who could lose 10 soldiers and still fight tomorrow. Vietnam became a meat grinder, and Washington kept sending more troops because pulling out meant admitting defeat. 1968 changed everything. On Tet, the Lunar New Year, the Viet Cong launched a massive coordinated surprise attack across South Vietnam. Dozens of cities, towns, and bases were hit at once, even the U.S. Embassy in Saigon. Militarily, America won. The Viet Cong suffered brutal losses, but psychologically, as journalist Walter Cronkite famously said after seeing the destruction, "We are mired in stalemate." Television brought the war into living rooms nightly, burning buildings, wounded soldiers, terrified civilians. People asked, if we're winning, why does it look like we're losing? The Tet offensive shattered American trust. Protests erupted, draft cards burned, families divided. Historian George Herring argues that Tet didn't defeat the U.S. militarily, it defeated the illusion of victory. By the early 1970s, President Richard Nixon realized the U.S. couldn't win Vietnam militarily, so he launched Vietnamization, pulling American troops out and turning the war back over to South Vietnam. On paper, it sounded smart. In reality, South Vietnam was unstable, unpopular, and depended heavily on U.S. air power. Peace talks in Paris dragged on for years. Neither side wanted to look weak. Meanwhile, bombings expanded into Cambodia and Laos, a secret war revealed later through investigative reporting and congressional hearings. Finally, in 1973, the U.S. signed the Paris Peace Accords. American forces went home, but the war wasn't over. In 1975, North Vietnam launched a massive final offensive. South Vietnamese defenses collapsed faster than anyone predicted. Cities fell one after another. Refugees fled in panic. On April 30th, 1975, North Vietnamese tanks rolled into Saigon. American helicopters evacuated diplomats and allies from the U.S. Embassy rooftop. The iconic image captured by Dutch photographer Hubert van Es. Saigon fell. Vietnam was reunified under communist rule. A war that cost millions of lives ended not with victory, but with evacuation and heartbreak. The Vietnam War didn't just affect Vietnam, it reshaped America permanently. It divided a generation, shattered trust in government, ended the military draft, transformed journalism, created PTSD awareness, and forced a rethinking of U.S. foreign interventions. For Vietnam, the cost was even heavier. Villages destroyed, jungles poisoned, millions displaced, hundreds of thousands killed. As Francis Fitzgerald writes in Fire in the Lake, the war left scars on land, families, and identity. Scars that still exist. Vietnam wasn't just a proxy war. It was a tragedy shared by two nations. Vietnam taught the world something brutal. You can have the strongest military on earth and still lose if you don't understand the country you're fighting in. Vietnam's wasn't lost because America didn't fight hard. It was lost because America didn't understand the culture, the politics, the terrain, or the motivations of the people living there. The U.S. entered Vietnam to stop communism. It left realizing some wars cannot be won. Not with bombs, not with money, not with manpower. Vietnam became the warning sign for future generations, a reminder that foreign intervention is never simple, never clean, never cost-free, and sometimes the hardest war to escape isn't the one abroad, it's the one inside your own nation.